Welcome to the 24K Life podcast. I'm your host, Derek Gant, and we have an amazing, young, talented, and aspiring genius that's going to help us with our heart centered business development, our brand development, and our overall 24K Life desire to be your absolute best self. Now, before I introduce our guest, I just want to share with you that these podcasts are meant to help you elevate your life in every way possible. Now, we focus on five core criteria of the areas that you want to make sure that you're hitting in your life. You need to make sure your money's right. Your mindset has to be right. Your relationships, your spirituality, your physicality, and of course, you gotta get that money right. With that, we are bringing in Alan Lazaros. Alan is going to talk about how to develop your business, specifically by building your own community. How can you build your community to elevate your brand to live your best 24K life? Alan?
Whoa, what an introduction, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, brother,
And,
it's all you, man. The CEO of Next Level University.
I just put you right behind my camera, so it looks like I'm looking right at the camera here. I'm ready to rock. I appreciate you having me. And
Absolutely.
let's talk about building a community.
Sounds good, man. But why don't you tell us, you've had some interesting experiences and aha moments in your life. Would you start by telling us about some of the things that have greatly impacted you to get you where you are before we talk about where you actually are?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I appreciate the question because I think it's important to know who someone is before you learn from them. And hopefully this can give kind of an idea of my backstory. It's not just the message, it's the messenger. So born into a really tough situation. My father was 28 years old when he passed away in a car accident. I was 2 years old at the time. And so definitely born in a situation where adversity, was present. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. And then at 14 years old, my stepfather left our family. And so at that stage, so I had an older sister and my mom. So I was kind of raised by two women.
Okay.
And my stepfather and I never really got very close, never really got along. And so by the time I'm 14 years old, my sister had moved out because she was older. And it was just me and my mom. And we went from, kind of 90s, early 2000s, doing really well, upper middle class, to, okay, he gets the yacht and the apartment building, we get the house and the dog. And now my mom has such low income that I actually get free lunch at school. That's how low our income was.
Okay.
And, going from getting Xbox and Dreamcast and all the nice stuff to basically, I don't know how I'm going to go to college.
Right.
And so then, my mom talked to me about academics, and I had this dream to go to WPI, which is called Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's kind of like a mini MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And I bootstrapped all through high school to get as many straight A's as I could. I ended up with straight A's except for one B in honors English. Never took honors English again. And then I did get into my school of my dreams, and I went and I became a computer engineer. And then I went into my MBA program, and then I went into corporate, and I did a bunch of soul searching, bunch of job hopping, lived in LA for a time, worked for iRobot, worked for Tyco Safety Products, Simplex Grinnell, eventually ended up at a company called Cognex.
Okay.
Did inside sales there. And then I was promoted to outside sales, managed a territory in Western New England, selling industrial automation equipment. And I'm on the road doing very, very well at that point. So by that point, I went from doing well before my father passed away to when he passed away, we were struggling financially, to then my stepdad came in the picture, worked for a company called AGFA, technology company, computers for hospitals. And we did very well while he was there. But then when he left, we went back to struggle bus. And then, struggled all through high school, all through college financially, to then doing really well. And so I'm in my early 20s. I paid off $84,000 worth of college debt in a single year back in 2014.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was super proud of that because I really wanted to get out of the debt. But by this point, I'm in my mid-20s. I'm almost 26, and I'm making almost $200,000 a year.
Okay.
So I kind of had the whole American dream in a way. right? Rags to riches sort of thing a little bit, right? Obviously, very blessed in some ways, tough childhood in others, but I made it work.
Yeah, and it got you to who you are, right?
Exactly. And so then it's 26 years old. I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin, and we're not doing anything crazy. We're playing Call of Duty. We're going to TGI Fridays, no drinking, nothing crazy. And I end up on the wrong side of the road when I was looking down at the GPS. The snowbanks were covering the signs. It was a really bad winter back in 2016.
Wow.
And I was supposed to yield and I didn't. And so I'm on the wrong side of the road, and I looked up from the GPS and I saw these big bright lights. I thought it was a Mack truck 10 feet in front of me. And I had that moment of, this is it. This is the end. Fortunately, it was not a Mack truck. If it was, there's no question that would be the end.
Wow.
It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. And I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat because I was trying to save money. And I used to call this thing a tank. German-engineered steel car. I mean, that Passat saved my life, 100%. Both airbags did deploy. My cousin and I, he hurt his knee in the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbag. Physically, we were okay, but my car was absolutely beyond totaled, and I've seen pictures of my dad's car. And so for me, seeing pictures of my dad's car, seeing pictures of my car, he died at 28 in a car accident. I'm 26 at the time, and this was just my quarter-life crisis.
Wow.
Questioned absolutely everything. Wasn't proud of who I was, choices I was making, drank too much and too often. Every mistake I've ever made, just ruminating, and just PTSD for sure. Double yellow lines scared me, so I kept getting pulled over on the wrong side of the road. Luckily, the police officers were very kind. I told them I was in a car accident, that kind of thing. I was claustrophobic for a while. But through exposure therapy and through personal growth, this is really when I started to focus on personal development. And after that, I always say this, before 26, I was very successful from the outside in. And after 26, I worked on becoming successful from the inside out.
I love it.
And that's really 9 years later now. I still look 15, but I'm actually 35. And I'm hoping 36 is when I hit puberty. But at this point, I'm 9 years later. And to say I went all in on personal growth is an understatement. At this stage. I became obsessed. And now I have a business built around it, and my whole world is built around it. And so that's kind of my story.
Tell us about how you built your business around it. What does that look like today?
Okay, so Next Level University is the brand and the business. And let me just move you over here. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm looking at you. There you go. So Next Level University is the name of the podcast, but it's also the name of the business. And Next Level University is built on the simple concept of no matter how hard your past has been, I know everyone has a story. And, my past was definitely very challenging in many regards, losing my father, losing my stepfather, in many ways lost 3 families by the time I'm 14, which is a whole nother episode.
Right.
But no matter how hard your past has been, you have a bright future if you want it. And you have a spotless future right now. And you can make new choices right now in the personal development side, developing yourself, personal growth, to change your future and make it bigger, better, and brighter. And that's going to be the harder road, but it's going to be the one that's deeply meaningful. And so the business is Next Level University, and it's built around a concept of health, wealth, and love. So those are the 3 areas we focus on.
Right.
Health is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Wealth is how you make your money. In other words, do you enjoy what you're doing to make money? How much do you make? Is it increasing or decreasing? And then where do you invest it? I know that's what you focus on.
Right.
And then love, which is intimate relationship, friends, family, colleagues, clients, mentors, mentees, all your associations.
Right.
And so if those are the 3 areas and you holistically harmonize and focus on those, and that's what our business is really built on. And so anyone who cares about these existential questions of the purpose of life, the meaning of life, anyone who's off autopilot and who really wants to make a difference, they tend to be drawn to NLU. And what I think is fascinating about the community we've built is it's built on people who at one point were on the boulevard of broken dreams. They were down and out. They were struggle bus, just like me after my car accident. And they're questioning their past. They're questioning their choices. They're questioning their purpose and their passion, and they're questioning this idea that you have to kind of do what people want you to do. The whole doctor, lawyer, engineer, failure thing. It's like you're either a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or you're a failure type of thing.
Right.
And everyone's kind of
right.
in our community is questioning that and saying, you know what? I don't want to just be successful at one thing. I don't want to go to a job I don't like. And I want to try to find a way to put in the work now to make my future holistically brighter. And so that's
Excellent, man. I
in a
love it.
nutshell.
Nope, I love it. It's awesome. We have very similar understandings, philosophies, and strategies towards helping people, level up. We start with the money, and we focus heavily on the money, so that they can hire amazing people like you to help them with the business, to help them with the love, to help them with the other things, so they can afford to go. Now, listen, if you are out here and you're really, really interested in what Alan's talking about, go to the Next Level Universe, nextleveluniverse.com, and check him out. He has group coaching, he has corporate coaching, they have a Facebook community. They have all of the tools in order for you to get started. And if you've already started and you're kind of stuck, to elevate to the next level. So Alan, tell us about your global team. How did you start or develop, and how did you get to the point to where you have a global team?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it was, in hindsight, it's very clear. So I have a business partner named Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's very clear. So we have a 21-person team now, and we kind of unintentionally and unconsciously ended up creating sort of two teams, and now we're sort of all under one flag, so to speak. But I'll get into that in a second. So he hired someone on Upwork who ended up being amazing. She's now the director of our podcast production company, and we produce, I think right now it's 52 shows, including 3 of mine.
Okay.
So we produce shows, podcasts. We have clients that pay us monthly, and we produce their show.
Excellent.
And that's just one part of the business. But he kind of built that in tandem with me building the coaching side.
Okay.
And so I ended up coaching all these amazing people who also wanted opportunities to grow. And so that team grew. And then he grew a team on the podcast production side. And so we ended up with these two sort of teams. And for a little while there, it kind of felt like two islands.
Mm-hmm.
You've got kind of Kevin's team and Alan's team type of thing. And eventually it was like, okay, wait a minute. So he's now CSO and I'm now CEO. And so now we're kind of all under one flag, so to speak. But really what it did is it started out with, listen, we can't do it all ourselves. That's what mostly happens. You start a business, you start building, you start growing. And eventually we did what's called a time audit. We had an in-person studio at the time, and we had this huge whiteboard, and we just went through, and we were both overwhelmed. I mean, I'm talking elbows on your knees, looking at the floor, just how are we going to survive this? How are we going to do this, right? We can't do it all. We can't. Mm-hmm. And we went through this time audit, and I'll never forget it because the whiteboard was full of all the things that we do on a week-to-week basis. And eventually it gets to the point where, and we mapped it out. Okay, how much time does that take? How much time does that take? We added sleep in there too. So there's 168 hours every week. We ended up with 12 left over. And we're like, dude, we can't keep doing this. And that pain got us to finally say, let's make the investment. Right? So that's when we found our amazing, her name's Ron. She's from the Philippines, and she's now the director of that whole team. And then it just grew from there, man.
Okay.
And we went from like listeners, that we have this ideology at NLU, listeners, longers, business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So listeners are people who want to learn from us to get started tracking habits and health, wealth, and love, that kind of thing. Longers are people who also want to build their own communities.
Okay.
So if anyone's out there, maybe you're a longer, maybe you want to build your own community too. And then the last one is business owners. These are the entrepreneurs who are ready to like invest, put the skin in the game, build something real. And quite frankly, I used to be naive and think everyone should become a business owner. I don't say that anymore. I mean, it's just awful. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's really bad. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think the whole entrepreneurial, it looks real nice on Instagram. It's actually just awful.
Yeah, but people don't understand that. They really don't. They think it's glamorous and sexy, and they hear all the statistics like, well, the future is in entrepreneurship, and you're like, yeah, okay, So let's talk about the longers. And before we talk about the longers, let's talk about it. Let me ask you a question. If somebody's trying to build a community, are you suggesting that and this may be really naive question, but if I heard somebody say, hey, I'm really looking to build a community, I'm assuming they're building the community to monetize it, not only to help people, but to monetize it, which would make them an entrepreneur or a business owner. So in your concept of your conversation that you're going to share with us in a little bit, how do you are distinguishing between the longers that are looking to build a community and entrepreneurs that are looking to build a business? Because I would kind of put those in the same box.
Yeah, so I think it's just stages of the journey.
Okay.
So I think we have this framework at NLU where we talk about wrong time. So that here's the recipe for failure. Ready? Wrong time perspective, wrong approach, wrong expectations. The recipe for success is the right time perspective, the right approach, and the right expectations. So the longers, the reason we built that is because, listen, you build a community long before you make any money.
Right. Absolutely.
And you start that process long before you make any money. And so anyone who's out there and thinks that they're going to make, money super quick, I remember my first business coach said, you're not going to make any money for the next 2 years. And I remember thinking, no way, no chance, right? And then 2 years in, I'm struggling to pay my bills. And Kevin, same deal, but that's what it's the 227 rule. So
Right.
statistically speaking, there are exceptions. It's called the 227 rule. First 2 years in business, you go into debt. Next 2 years takes you to get out of debt. By the 7th year, you're actually profitable.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of the 7-year rule, but never the 2-2 part. So, but that seems to be super accurate as far as I'm concerned.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. So let's talk about that longer journey today, and I'm going to have you back, and we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial journey for the university. But for now, let's talk about the longer journey. Somebody has a gift, they have a service, they have something that needs a community. First of all, what's your thought process on community? Is there enough people for everybody to have their own community?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. Well, first of all, I'm a math guy. I'm a computer engineer by trade, so forgive me for everything being math and statistics. But at the end of the day, the answer is yes, and the reason why is most people won't. Right? Out of every 100 random people, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Now, not everyone can have, mathematically, not everyone can have a billion-person community, right? We just surpassed 8 billion on the planet. That's actually recent, very recent. If you Google it, we just surpassed the 8 billion mark. And of that, there's almost 6 billion online. And at the end of the day, whether it's relationships or a community, which is the same thing really, it's built around a mutual core value or a mutual passion.
Right.
So, for example, I'm a movie buff. I'm obsessed. Absolutely love movies.
What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? So, Lion King is my favorite. I'm torn between Lion King and Good Will Hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, both of which are very personally meaningful to me. Obviously, in The Lion King, the father dies at the beginning, that kind of thing, right? Yep. And then Good Will Hunting, the math genius in growing up in struggle bus. But anyways, so that's my point, though, right? When you have the courage to say you are something, you can build a community around it. And so what people don't understand, and what I didn't understand either, is that community is built around a common core value. And I didn't learn this until I learned it the hard way when I quit drinking. When I quit drinking, I lost a lot of my friends. And I realized, these friendships were actually built on geography and drinking. And so when I went all in on personal growth after 26, what I talked about earlier, I started to slowly lose everyone who isn't obsessed with personal growth, who isn't passionate about personal growth. If you're not into personal growth, you probably don't even like me.
Hey, I say it every Sunday when I do my live. I do a live little set. It's not really a podcast, but like I call it Sunday Night Live at 7. And every Sunday I tell people, listen, if you aren't trying to elevate your game, you probably shouldn't stay, because that's all I'm going to talk about. Is how to get your money right so that you can go find the Alan Lazzaros of the world, so that you can go find a gastro coach, so that you can go find, so you can wear excellent gear and get the best training support. That's my whole spiel. And I'd say that I love that you said that, because I say the same thing. Like, you're probably not going to like me or want to tolerate me, because there's no excuses in this baby, right? It's all accountability. Let's go. So,
Nice.
so I love that you say that, man. Let me ask you a question. I know you were mid-thought, but what do you think about Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans?
I think so. I know of it, but I don't know enough to probably speak intelligently
Well,
about it.
so you can speak intelligently because this is what he says. All you need is 1,000 people in your corner to be successful.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I think people don't understand about business is that so my business model is a funnel, but it's not like a click funnel.
Okay.
And at the top of the funnel, let's say, okay, so my podcast reaches, we're about to cross 1 million this year. So 1 million listens, okay? I think we're like, statistically, we run the numbers. I think we're like 3 months away from 1 million.
Okay.
And, okay, so that's 1 million listens. That doesn't mean 1 million listeners, okay? Because we have a lot of episodes. And so of those 1 million listens, what's the probability that someone listens and takes the next step? And the next step in this case would be maybe group coaching or book club or like your lives. I have a monthly meetup that we do. It's private on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next step, closer, closer, closer. And community and business is about proximity. How do you bring people closer, but they have to earn it with skin in the game?
Right.
And so, number one, you get exposure. So let's say in this case, 1 million, just to make it simple. What's the probability that someone listens and comes to that next step? And I would say it's probably 1%. Okay, so what's 1% of 1 million? I think that's probably 1,000, I think, something like that.
Right.
Of those 1,000, how many of them are paid coaching?
Mm-hmm.
And the probability of them coming closer increases as they go down. And so you can kind of run this formula. I used to coach a YouTuber with 50 million, YouTube views and all that stuff. And I couldn't believe how little money he made. And one thing that I think is really fascinating is that people think, I have one person I'm thinking of who blew up on TikTok, and at this stage I've interviewed all these people, and I didn't know any of this in the beginning, because in the beginning, I call it the 1/10 rule.
Okay.
If someone looks really successful and they're really good at marketing, they're most likely 1/10 as successful as you think.
Right.
If someone doesn't look successful and doesn't market themselves well, they're actually 10 times more wealthy than you think. So I'm thinking of one of my mentors who's in the tech industry. This dude, drives a regular car. You would never know, and he's actually 10 times more wealthy than you'd think. So it's called the inverse 10 rule. That's what I call it.
Okay.
And so, everyone on social media is amplifying what's good and hiding what's bad, and the people who don't care about that don't look successful. So, anyways, the point that I'm trying to make, though, is that there's this formula that comes, and as you get better at connecting, as you get better at your passion, as you get better at communicating effectively, as you get better at lowering intimidation and increasing desire, as you get better in your craft, you increase the probability that someone comes closer.
Right.
And when you do that, you not only build community, but you build a profitable business. And it takes a long time because in this world of, hey, here's the 3 easy steps to become a millionaire with very little effort, like that stuff is just luckily people are waking up. There's only so many $10,000 courses you can hate and lose your money and get scammed before you start to wake up.
Exactly.
But if you want to build a real community in the real world, that's what we talk about at NLU. Build a real community in the real world with real people. I know that sounds funny because isn't that what everyone's doing?
Well, are you saying grassroots in person, or are you saying what are you saying?
Yeah, so we have an in-person component. So for example, we have Next Level Live coming up in 56 days. 30 people, small, intimate group, Groton. It's a nice little venue. We got lunch going. Teams coming in. We got an Airbnb. We have a virtual global business, but we build community locally if we can.
Right.
And so my team, for example, you asked me about team earlier. We have a 21-person team. The teamwork and the collaboration and the leadership amplifies when you know each other in person. But that doesn't mean we have to hang out every week.
Right.
And so we don't have like a headquarters or a brick and mortar building. I think that's a thing of the past in many regards. And I think that's one of the things that I help people with is, you have older people who lived in a world pre-internet. Google is only 25 years old. It's like wild to think about. And, if you want to bring business into the future, you got to go online.
Right.
And everyone kind of knows that now, but that transition is difficult because how do you lead online?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It wasn't until COVID that Zoom went from 50 million users to 500 million basically overnight.
Bro, I was never so happy either.
I know. I love the online. I'm a big fan of online. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I do. Before COVID, I started the first thing that we did was I had a couple team members that were getting married. They needed to leave the vicinity. Their spouses or future spouses were going to get jobs outside of the area. And so the first thing we did was we figured out how to let them be able to work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we continued to move forward, that was a few years before COVID that started. And then then COVID hit, and it was so much love because I can do in 30 minutes what was taking me an hour, including small talk and goodbye talk and all the other stuff. I can do that hour meeting in 30 minutes and never leave my office.
Yeah.
Now, I love the in-person interaction, so I'm not suggesting that I don't enjoy it, but man, the online is just so much more viable, let's say, as far as your time management and all those things. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. So when you're building, so what do you consider? Where do you focus most of your energies in building like real life connections and from person to person, face to face type networking and those type of things, or your online community, or you have different leaders leading different ones to try to grow simultaneously?
Yeah. So the way we've structured our business is we have 22 departments. One of them is a charity. And so I think of them each like little business units.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them has their own leader.
Okay.
And so I'll give you an example rather than some esoteric org structure. What's a good example? Okay, monthly meetups or book club. We'll use book club. Okay, book club. We've been doing book club for, I think we're coming up on 155 weeks. I've got the book over here. It's been every Saturday for 155 weeks in a row. And it's a tight-knit community of people who love personal development books.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this every book club. I say we're not here just to read books. We're here to get better.
Right.
And we're going to implement. And at the end of every single one, we actually have an intention that we all set in the chat, and then we put that chat into our WhatsApp community.
Okay.
And so Brandon is my team member who spearheads that, and I'm kind of the co-pilot.
Got you.
So I'm sort of as the CEO, I'm sort of the co-pilot of every department, and I make sure all the departments work together.
Mm-hmm.
But he is the leader and the owner of book club. So if book club is losing, that's on him.
Right.
But I mean, ultimately, it's on me because I'm obviously the CEO of the company. But
course.
you know what I'm saying? So we call it a DRI. So Steve Jobs used to call it DRI, directly responsible individual. Mm-hmm. So Brandon is the directly responsible individual for book club. And then the last piece of this, how do you manage all that stuff? We have one team huddle every other week where we go through every department and we rate from 0 to 10 how we're doing. And then we do a most important win, most important improvement. And then we have a department meeting every other week with each department, and I'm facilitating those, and we have metrics. So we measure 3 things for each department. And it's the 3 things that really do matter, because to your point earlier, and I'm also a big fan of virtual because my commute is 30 seconds now, you can be so much more effective and so much more efficient when you are virtual, assuming that you actually can do a good job on Zoom of facilitating great relationships online. Now, I grew up playing pro gaming and semi-pro gaming, so for me, some of my best friendships were online even in high school. I used to play Halo, Halo 2, all that stuff, StarCraft 2, all that. And so one of my best friends in high school was from Georgia, and we never met in person. So I think because of that, I think I got good at building relationships online. So some of my team members that I'm closer with than any in-person friends, I've never even met in person.
Wow. Now, are they going to come to your event coming up here?
Some of them are. Some of them are. Yeah. So my executive admin, Jerry Ann, the sweetest, super competent, mother of 4, awesome. She's coming, and that's the first time. I mean, I've been working with her for 2.5 years. She was a client first. She was a listener, then a client, listener, then group coaching member, then client, then team member.
Nice.
And now she's been my EA for the last 6 months, and I'm going to meet her in person for the first time this March.
I love it. That's going to be a great meeting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So talk to me about um I don't want to say the average person, because if they're trying to build a community, they've stepped up from mediocrity and they're looking to elevate. So, in their mind's eye, how would a novice, somebody that's just been posting memes and maybe giving a few, insights here and there, they have a business they're interested in, but they're looking to build community first through a blog or whatever the case is. What advice do you have for them? Because they don't have the ability to launch off with 21 people, 21 departments, which is great philosophy, not even a philosophy, great implementation, great strategy. But what about that new person that's saying, hey, I really want to build a community? What should I be doing? Should I be thinking? What should my metrics be?
Yeah. So we pulled up the old business model of NLU back when it was the Hyperconscious podcast before we rebranded, and the first thing I would say is we didn't start with 21 team members. We didn't start with 21 departments, 22
Mm-hmm.
departments. And it was ebbs and flows, expand, contract, expand, contract. But for someone in the beginning, you have to find your train that's never going to stop. So for us, Next Level University is the podcast, and we're almost at 1,600 episodes, but we started that 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from 1 episode a week, which was a struggle, to eventually 2, to eventually 3. And then one of our mentors pushed us to go to 5. We went to 5, and then it took us eventually a while to get to 7. And now we do 7 a week.
Okay.
But we never could have started at 7. Seriously, like no way. And obviously, as the production team grew, we became more capable. And so everything starts small and builds. So, but you have to find the one thing that never changes. So, for example, I use this analogy, and I'm kind of a nerd and a movie buff, like I told you, so forgive me for this. But the second Matrix movie, Matrix Reloaded, Neo's flying through the Matrix to save Trinity, and all the glass and all the cars and stuff are flying around him.
Uh-huh.
I use that analogy for people because the podcast for Next Level University is that. It's the one train that has all the momentum that connects everything else together.
Okay.
And if we were to stop the podcast, even though no one's conscious of it, everything else would slowly die too.
Mm-hmm.
And so for someone just getting started, you got to lock in on what your one train with your one train track is going to be. What's your Neo? And if you can stay consistent and never lose momentum, even though there's ebbs and flows, never lose consistency in that one train, the rest you can build around it.
Okay.
But if you don't have the one train and you lose momentum because you take a couple months off or whatever it is, you will never ignite the compound effect to the extent that it takes to really build a community, because community is built around something that people can trust unconsciously.
Right. So do you believe, there's some services online, there's some obviously groups on social like Facebook and those types. How do you suggest that people ground their community? Or let's say, for instance, do you think that their Neo should be a physical community like a Facebook group, or like I think it's mightynetworks.com has a offering where you can build a community where you can come and listen to, a YouTube, or you can hear me talk about whatever, or take a course. Do you think they should do something like that? Or what's the foundation of the structure of their Neo, in your opinion? And I know everybody's different, but what's your advice? What advice would you give?
I would say a podcast is a good one because it's actually pretty easy to get started.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a private Facebook group accompanying a podcast is really powerful. A YouTube channel is an easy go-to. Some people use Instagram as theirs. I had one client who was huge on Instagram. I had another client who was huge on YouTube. And so it really depends on what the obsession is.
Okay.
Every obsession, people don't like the word obsession. Passion, obsession. I like obsession.
Right.
If you're obsessed with personal growth, you will like Next Level University. If you're not, you will not. I always say, like, Apple should not sell T-shirts. Red Bull should not sell tech products.
Right.
I remember when Under Armour bought one of the apps I use. It's like, what are you doing? And then they sold it a year later. I knew they were going to sell it because it's
right. That wasn't fit. Wasn't a good fit.
if you're known for everything, you're known for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's funny coming from someone who's the holistic health, wealth, and love.
Right.
But at the end of the day, personal growth is the through line that combines us all. So the
Absolutely.
podcast works well for us. For you, it could be a YouTube channel. It could be an Instagram. There has to be one thing where
Yeah,
you
I can tell you.
connect
What
with
do you
your
think?
community.
What do you
Go
think
ahead.
about this, man? I have gotten burned for absolutely no reason, and I know, everybody that's in jail said they weren't guilty, but I got burned, and by Facebook they closed. I had a group of, I don't know, it wasn't huge. It might have been 400 people, which still took a few years to get to that level, because it was focus group. It wasn't just anybody who wanted to join, and they
Yeah.
just shut it down for no reason. And so I that was my personal experience. And we looked at everything that we posted, and I mean, it was all puppy dogs and kittens. So it was really weird that it got shut down. My point in bringing that up is that when I'm talking to people that are looking to build community, I usually recommend that they do it outside, find a way to do it outside of someone else's social control. So if it's Twitter, if it's TikTok, if those things are amazing to attract, but if you want to own your community, I'm not so sure that your neo should be a Facebook group. I like what you said. Hey, let's get the podcast, and then we can accompany that with the private Facebook group. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the old adage of if you put all your eggs in one basket, you're gonna have to eat the chicken. And it's one of those things where, I mean, if you did it in Clubhouse, it's like, damn, right? Because you don't want to do it on a fad, though.
Exactly.
And I do think that that's the important piece is not to build your community on a fad.
Mhm.
And so if you can't honestly answer the question, is this existed 5 years ago and it's probably going to exist 5 years from today, and you can't say 10 out of 10 certainty, like YouTube, probably a strong bet. It's a
Right.
strong bet. I mean, the chances of YouTube going down, Google going down, probably low.
Yeah.
Facebook and Meta, I mean, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, the chance of them going down is low. But again, things do happen where you lost a community. So, and then on top of that, you can build moats around your castle, so to speak. So, for example, let's say we have a Facebook group with almost 800. So let's say Facebook were to do that to us. Well, I still have my mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got the podcast.
Yep.
I've still got the YouTube channel.
Yep.
I've still got ways to connect. And this is where prospecting comes in. I've actually got private database of everyone I've personally connected with,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got their email.
Right.
And I don't spam anybody or anything like that, but I have it available. So if anything were to happen, I could still, build community.
Yeah. That's exactly that's exactly where I was leading to and hoping that you would say is that you have to put these protections around yourself. You have to own your own community by having their contact information and being able to reach out to them outside of any other of the social platforms that you might depend on. Go ahead.
It's like business cards used to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Back in my corporate days, I used to have this giant, thing of business cards that you'd flip through, and now it's that, but digital, right? And so
Yep.
if you don't have that building now, start that habit. You
Yep.
got to start that habit. That's
Nope,
really
I agree
important.
totally, man. Hey, I've enjoyed this conversation so much, and I'm personally impressed. I saw, I toured the website and toured some of your socials and your content, all amazing stuff, and I appreciate you spending some time. And I'm going to ask you right now, put you on the spot, and say, hey, will you come back and let's talk about that third level sometime in the future?
I will, and I appreciate the courage it takes to ask me that live. yeah, of course. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
That's not courage. That's a setup.
yeah, exactly. Either way.
No,
Definitely.
Well, we appreciate you, man. Any last thoughts you want to share, man? We want everybody to go to the Next Level Universe. I know we talked about the university, but this is the Next Level Universe.com. What parting thoughts do you want to add for the people?
Don't design your life or your business or your community on something fleeting. Don't design your life, business, or community on a fad. design it on a passion, design it on an obsession. And honestly, I'm going to go one step further. Design it on an obsession, not a passion. It needs to be something you're obsessed with. Because I'm telling you, I don't do 1,600 episodes talking about, tennis. I don't care about tennis.
Right.
And I'm never going to care about tennis, right? So you can't win in business and in life and in building a community if you're not obsessed.
Yeah, I believe you. I'm
And
with you, man.
everyone's obsessed with something. Everyone's obsessed with something, and your obsession can change the world, and that's what I end with.
Absolutely. All right, man. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with you. All right, you heard it. I heard so many gems inside of his conversation, inside of his expertise and his delivery, and some of those are just so pertinent for you. And I don't think that he said anything more valuable than what he closed with. It's like, people get these ideas and they're fleeting and you haven't tested them out and you haven't really owned it yourself. Another one of my really, really good friends always says that you have to be the first partaker of your fruit, meaning that if you are motivating, then you need to make sure that you are motivated. And so in that, don't buy into the fads. Look to build community and look to do it by finding people that have the same obsession that you do, but they don't have the same expertise. I'm Derek Gann. I want you to be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance. And listen, check out our podcast weekly. And if you enjoy them, please like, share, and subscribe. And yes, we are asking you to go check out Mr. Lazaros at thenextleveluniversity.com. I'm Derek Gann. Have a great week.